All right. So now we come to the panel discussion. So I'll invite the panelists to come and sit here. And audience also, you'll be given an opportunity to ask questions, so be prepared. Let's see. And Kevin, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I'll try to get Kevin on the there he is. Okay. We can see you. All right. So, one of the things about doing a panel is that you want to get enough variety of opinions and expertise onto the panel, but also you want to talk about, what are the general challenges and general things that are going on in the industry. So I'll start with, let's say, maybe Pooja. What what are the things? Well, we'll start on a positive note. What are the things that excites you when it comes to your business? What are the environmental uh, changes that are happening in the country that excites you about prospects for your business?
Yeah, definitely. I think that right now we are looking at, I think like Uli mentioned in his presentation, we've been really going through therapeutic approaches that have been there consistently for 20 years. And I think that what excites me right now is the opportunity for newer therapeutic approaches to kind of be showcased and shed light on, especially when it comes to the different the different types of approaches that each individual needs. One type of approach is not just general to everyone. I think that a lot of different a lot of different children and whether or individuals on the spectrum need to very much broaden the different types of approaches being taken. And I think that what excites me is, there's from music therapy to art therapy, from just even sports therapy, physical therapy. I think that that's become quite known, and especially now. I mean, I grew up in a very academically toxic environment, and my version of coping with the stress that came with that was, to play piano and to do art. And I think that exploring these different approaches in dance therapy, that's something that's been so big, especially when it comes to physical movements and being able to really showcase those motor skills. I think that there is so much data out there that is that's very limiting in terms of scope. You can't really see a whole child's picture in terms of in a 30-minute clinic setting, or especially in a couple hours in school. So right now, I'm really excited about the fact that we're kind of now just starting to culminate and see these cross-sector collaborations between the clinical markets and the healthcare or the educational markets that can really showcase and push forward progress, especially when it comes to behavioral health, and even just including the different environmental factors and lifestyle factors. I like to say also that my mom, every time, she's a holistic nutritionist, and as a kid growing up, I'd get a cut on my foot and she'd be like, Pooja, it's sleep, diet, and stress. And I'd be like, Mom, you're crazy. That's ridiculous. And now I understand the benefits of being able to regulate, your sleep, diet, stress, any lifestyle factors, anything that kind of goes beyond the scope of measurement today. And so I'm really looking forward to being able to utilize Mindly in that setting and being able to bring together these different types of therapeutic approaches to really make sense of, what a child needs and how to adapt the care plan so that, we can meet their needs and serve them the best way possible. So, yeah.
Good, thank you. Kevin, same question. What excites you about where you are right now, within this autism business?
Um, yeah, I mean, the short answer is personally, I think AI has the chance to change a lot of things. And, I'll fully own that I'm a bit of a fanboy of AI in general. So take what I say with, a grain of salt. But yeah, I do really think that AI has the opportunity to change every aspect of kind of personalization from a tool perspective when you look at like ed tech and diagnostics and all sorts of other things that it can touch. Um, and then also, if I zoom out a little bit and look at just the broader market, I really do think now is an interesting time from a funding standpoint. It's never easy to raise money, so I'll just say that. But I do think that we are in an interesting time where there's been a few cool acquisitions in the space. There's some evidence, politically there's a spotlight being shown on it, not get into whether that's right or wrong, but there's a lot of chatter. So if you are a founder right now, it's not a bad time to go out and raise money, which may not be true in a few years. So those are a few things that I'm excited about.
Right. All right. Pramila, your turn. What excites you most about your business and environment?
I will, of course, focus on medical treatments because that's what I'm familiar with. When we started the Brain Foundation, there were just a handful of clinicians who would come over to the Bay Area and give some talks to a bunch of parents who are interested in listening to them. From there, we have grown to the point where physicians asked us to start funding research so that they could then talk about evidence-based treatments. And we started doing that. And now we have close to, as I said, about 100 applications every year for. And we've been funding about 30 institutions all over the country. And this has grown so much that we are now hosting a gala at the end of this year in November. Those who are interested, please come over. So we are trying to raise funds for a clinical trial. So there is all around importance given to this topic now that the time has come when we really need standard of care for this condition. And it's not just a few people talking about it. There is a critical mass of people talking about critical mass of autistic individuals talking about it. And this also comes from increased advocacy and improved diagnosis and treatments in these treatment centers that do treat these individuals that have seen something in common, that if we look at these comorbidities, look at these holistic, a look at the whole body approach and treat individuals with specialty care, then we do get to a better place. And it's not just one kid here or there. Even among the fellows, there's not one theory or one Hari talking about it. There's thousands of kids now all over in universities and other institutions of higher learning talking about their conditions and talking about their medical comorbidities and so on. So I think there's a critical mass is what I would say, which has led to this point where there's so much interest in funding research, getting those clinical trials done and getting more FDA approved treatments. And I think when we get to a point where like MS or ALS even, where there's a pipeline of drugs available, then that is where we'll really start to see a shift, a change. We are not talking about cure overnight, but we are talking about improvement in functioning day after day, year after year. So at some point, our kids with autism and those people in this population are going to require less and less assistance, and they will be more and more independent. And that's our goal in the end.
Great. Thank you. Rob, same question. What do you see that is exciting?
That's not enough excitement for you already. Well, I look at the world objectively, I guess, with my very narrow lenses as a scientist, and I do see things as being physical, and I'm really excited by our ability to see what's going on a molecular level, because then we can start to break it down and come up with answers. So, we've had this information for some time, and it's been really hard to get people excited about it until now, I think, because there is a bright light being shone on some of the challenges within the ASD community, and I think for whether it's placed in the right way or not is debatable, but it's actually bringing it to our attention, and I think it's an opportunity that we should all really embrace. So I'm excited that our tools are really well suited to supporting individuals in the community, and I really am looking forward to being able to do that. But what Kevin said, the AI tools are so enabling. They make our job a lot easier, and we're able to I showed you the example of one of and I say one of our interfaces, but now we can generate interfaces by prototyping with AI tools in 2 or 3 days. And so we can start to look at the verticals that we're working in so that it's almost like anybody can personalize this information for themselves. And I think that that'll come. And so it really is tailor-made to a personalized approach to care. So not only you tailoring the care, you can actually tailor how you interpret it and where you want to take it next. So, yeah, these are exciting times for a lot of different reasons.
Good, good. All right. Now let's talk about the other side.
Throw some water on it now.
Yeah. Now that we're all excited. So Pooja, what is the biggest challenge you're facing?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge right now is the fragmentation of care that is seen across all types of institutions that provide service for kids on the spectrum. I think that there the data is very limiting in scope. Currently, like I mentioned before, 30 minutes in a clinic or a couple hours in school doesn't do justice to a child's full picture. And I think that being able to, once again, have that cross-sector collaboration between different institutions, different areas in health, even, like microbiology and, just on the genetic level, being able to bring together and unify these different factors is very important. And I think that right now, people are very much operating in different silos. And so that's what we're trying to kind of make or get an improvement upon is being able to bring together these different institutions and making sure that there is a path forward where it's holistic and where it's more in tune with the needs of that specific child. Right now everything is very much generalized and very much manual. I think that, like Keevan said, AI right now is definitely one of the bigger games to be played out there, and that's definitely going to push forward that side of the problem. But I definitely think that, once again, fragmentation, there's so much data out there and so much we can learn, just if we kind of keep our eyes a little bit open or more open. And so I think that that's one of the biggest struggles, is just being able to, or not, the lack thereof of just communication between these different aspects of autism care.
Great. Okay, Keevan, what is the biggest challenge you see in multiples business?
Yeah, and I'll keep maybe at high level since we see so many founders and just some of the lessons learned. But fragmentation, absolutely. I totally echo what was just said. That's a big piece, is that there are so many different tools that tackle different things, but the interconnectivity of them is lacking right now. So you have to cobble together all these different tools to really make a complete care plan, or even just kind of tech ecosystem. And then the other thing from a founder perspective that I see is like the biggest challenge is it's really distribution, in the sense that most of the founders that we work with, or the ones that are struggling to raise money and go kind of do all the things that they need to do, they just don't have a good go-to-market strategy. Really, we see a lot of like amazing tech and really bright founders. But where it's lacking is like, all right, how are you going to go get your first 100,000, even 10,000 users for this product? Even if you've got a small kind of case for efficacy. So that's absolutely something I would push everyone, if you're thinking about building this space, is to like be really intentional about that on the front end, and almost kind of build for distribution from the start. And then the last thing I'll say, because I could ramble on this forever, is just willingness to pay. So another challenge that we're seeing with founders is that they have, again, really great products and really great sort of case studies, or even just studies in general that say, hey, this tool really works. But going from research or lab to market, it's a pretty big gap. So I'm always pushing founders to figure out willingness to pay and understand the real value of their tool early on, so they can make a strong case for commercialization. And really, that's what investors and everyone else is going to want to see, so you can get this to scale. So those are a few things that are challenges with the founders that we're working with, but we help solve some of those. It's just that's the startup life. It's hard.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Pramila, what are the challenges that you're seeing? I know you mentioned about money.
I think that's the first one, insufficient NIH grants for this field, which has resulted in a lack of a body of research in basic science. And that is why we started there. And that has also to do with a lack of unified activism from the point of view of the population. And there, the problem is that this population itself and the caregivers are fragmented. So we have those individuals on the autism spectrum or their caregivers who believe that the condition is extremely severe and there is no hope. And therefore, there is no need to work on treatments or anything else, and we should just look at quality of life and housing and things like that. And then there are a few that look at this as a severe medical condition and we need therapies, we need treatment. And then there are a few who say we only need non-medical treatment. And then there are a few who say this is an aspect of diversity and let us be, and we are not going to treat this. And this whole group of individuals all come under the autism spectrum. And this makes it even more difficult when we don't have a common voice. So I think that that's the major problem that we need to think about when we are talking about challenges for anybody who's trying to make a difference in this field. So I think that may be the first one. And I feel that as a result of that, insufficient progress has been made in every one of those fronts, because we are now talking about lack of subtyping, lack of subgrouping. I always tell people that this problem is not unique to autism. This problem exists in almost every other condition, and we have found solutions there. We do have treatments for cancer and several other autoimmune diseases, etc., where there are also problems with subgrouping, and we did, get a handle on those populations. So we should be able to do it here as well. So I'm positive about it, but I feel that the lack of progress since my son was diagnosed to today, there has been very minimal progress. And I think that's the reason for that.
Same. Yeah.
You don't have to ask me the question. I know what you're going to ask. But I think the biggest challenge we face is we don't really know what we're facing. We don't really understand what autism is entirely, and it's a spectrum. And there's this concept of stratifying the population so we can treat individuals according to their need. We just haven't had the tools until now to really figure out what's going on, what does each individual need, what's working, what's not. And watching the symptoms, watching behaviors, we can pick up behavior change, or we can pick up changes on a biological level before behaviors change, and we can see if we're going in the right direction, so that we have those metrics. So I think that the biggest challenge is also our biggest opportunity. And I think if we start to really focus in on figuring out what's going on a biological level, truly, and starting to figure out how each individual is different, where their behaviors fit along what we call that spectrum, is going to be key to really making progress. The only other challenge I think is, this is a very undernourished area, and it's long overdue for some attention. It doesn't just affect the individual. We know that it affects the families, and it affects the families in their workplace, and it goes well beyond that. So it goes deep into our society, and we've just been sort of ignoring it and leaving the families alone. And it's a lot. I mean, I know it's a lot. I actually don't have anybody. I had a 3-year-old. My kid was a pain in the butt, but nothing like that. They all are. No, that's not the right thing to say. But it's a hard thing to do day in and day out, and we need support systems, and we need to be finding out what's going on. So I think the challenge is the opportunity.
Yeah, well said, well said. When I think about the spectrum, and when we think spectrum is a linear thing. Autism is 3D, 4D, I don't know, 6D. It is so complex. If it's a spectrum, you can line people up and then say, okay, where are you on this spectrum? but it's such a complicated issue. Actually, my co-founder was insisting that we write a book about it.
Exactly worth it.
So I mean, it's amazing how complex. Once you delve into it, once you try to figure it out, once you try to solve the problem. Okay, great. It's now time for questions from the audience. Please raise your hand if you want to ask any of our panelists a question. Okay, what's your name and tell us your affiliation?
Hi, my name is Rafael. I'm a grad student at UC Davis. I'm a designer and I'm working with wearables for mental health. Specifically, I'm narrowing down to autism spectrum. And my question is for Kevin. So itself, like on my research, I also realized that there's a lack of solutions and interest, I would say, for designing for adults, not only for ASD, but other for ADHD, but depression and other things. And I'd like to ask you, like, if you get some sense of why this happens. So I know there's like multiple reasons, but if you can like have a thought about it, like the reasons that can happen, because actually, like from economic standpoint, is who has like the money, but at the same time, it's overlooked. So I don't know. I just like, do you have any thoughts on and also for other panelists?
So the main question is why adult autism is not taken seriously.
Yeah, it's overlooked. Yeah,
it's overlooked. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, no, I mean, you nailed it, right? Because it is. That's the same trend or kind of gap that we've seen is that, once you get to that 18 mark, the support just falls off, right? And I don't have a good answer for why. I think there's probably a number of reasons. I know there's like housing is a big issue that people are trying to focus on and work through. But what I would say is that something that Multiple is specifically interested in is backing solutions that are for adults with autism because there is such a big gap. There's so much happening on the kind of like pediatric and kind of adolescent side that we do want to back more solutions like that. I know I didn't answer your question directly. I don't know what the answer is, but if you're building something, let's talk because we are hunting for those kind of solutions.
Great.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to take it?
I think that problem is across the board. It's true in medical research as well. Part of the reason may be that the numbers are growing more recently. And so in the past, there were no like autism clinics. Today, the autism clinics are basically pediatric psychiatrists, pediatric developmental pediatricians, and speech therapists for pediatrics and so on. So it is sort of monopolized by the pediatric groups. And there is not much emphasis on adults, which really has to change because these kids are now becoming adults. And since we don't have a standard of care or treatment, the numbers are not falling off. We still have a rising number of adults now who need care. So definitely whatever you design, keep adults in mind. And reach out to us too. We can connect you with them.
Yeah, I was going to guess at the reasons, and I think a lot of it has been mentioned that we're focused on trying to understand what's going on, and so children seem to be the biggest opportunity to make change, and so it's probably a missed opportunity that we're not addressing the adult because depression does build up in these individuals, and it is a major cause of death in that community, and so we need to do something. It is dire. So congratulations on the work you're starting.
I see that there's a hand raised in the audience online. Can you unmute yourself and ask the question?
Hello, everyone. My name is Aza. I'm super excited to be here. It was really, really incredible talk. I am developing also wearable technology right now with vibrational sensation. And a huge part of my market is people who are on the spectrum, but I really want to market it as a large consumer electronic. So it doesn't other those who are using it for.
What is your question for the panel?
Oh, my question? Yeah, my question is, have you guys ever worked with vibrational sensation in therapeutics for autism?
I guess that will go to Kevin and maybe Pramila. Have you seen
No.
any vibration therapy? Okay. Kevin,
Uh,
have you?
Yes, I have. Not a ton. There's a company that I'm familiar with that's doing this around emotional recognition, kind of recognizing emotions in people's and then giving kind of haptic feedback. And there's maybe one other, but in general, like there's not a ton. I've just seen a couple in terms of ones that have either come through our program or have applied and we've looked at.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions in the audience? Yes. Name and your affiliation?
Yeah. Well, this is Nicole. I'm a student at UCLA, and I'm also starting my own business, like developing a tech platform for educational system to dealing with mental health issues. That's why I'm here. And I have a question for Pooja, and I wonder, like, I'm really fascinated about your idea and your company there. I wonder how do you guys dealing with liability issue, like any concerns around that area, like problem happened with your platform, how would you hold accountability for that?
So the question from our audience here is, how do you deal with liability for your product or for your service?
Yeah,
Pooja?
that's a great question. I think that the first thing that we ever, especially as we were starting to build our product, is to make sure that patient privacy and patient information is as secure as possible. I think that's the biggest question, that comes especially from parents and schools. Clinics have their own way of kind of dealing with patient privacy, but I think that when it comes to schools, especially since we deal with video tracking and analysis and everything like that, that was definitely one of the biggest questions. And so first and foremost, we worked very hard to become HIPAA compliant, FERPA compliant, and make sure that all of our information is fully encrypted and anonymized. I think that was one of our biggest achievements. Then moving forward to building out our MVP and going to market. And I think that when it comes to liability as well, there are a lot of conversations that we've had with schools specifically about parent consent release forms and just release forms in general, so that we can hold ourselves accountable, but also that they, and they as in the care team members, know what they're getting themselves into. I think that we are probing a lot of different types of data from these children, and we want to make sure that we're doing it in an effective way, but also in a very safe way, not to harm the child and not to harm members of the care team as well. And so I think that starting off with the general security measures that need to be taken into account when you're dealing with tech, but also to be able to have those open conversations, with the stakeholders that you're dealing with, and making sure that they're comfortable with telling you their concerns, and also for you to be comfortable with, kind of figuring out ways to mitigate those concerns as well. So hopefully that answered your question.
I can add a little bit to that. If you're dealing with medical data or any PHI, personal health information, there are standard techniques to take care of those things, like the HIPAA and HIPAA consent forms and BAs, and all those documents have to be signed with each of your covered entities, and you need to have your system architected in a solid way using really good security experts in the company or consultants, or however you can do that. Your system has to be secure. You need to have all your forms in place. And above all that, you will need to acquire insurance. Like, you have to get insurance for security of data. You have to get insurance for all kinds of different, which you can talk to insurance companies and acquire insurance for as much as you need to cover yourself. If despite all your best efforts, something should happen, you will be covered.
Great. There's a question in the chat for, I guess, Rob. It seems there's no blood draw location in US.
There's no blood draw location in the US.
Yeah.
For molecular U?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there are. So we use GetLabs, and we are using Exam One, and we have a number of clinics. So primarily we work with clinics. So the clinics can perform their own draws. So, and we haven't integrated into the autism community, which does require special skills in order to perform the autism or perform the phlebotomy. But we are in conversations with organizations that can perform that. So But yes, you definitely can get it done in the U.S. and in every state except for New York. We haven't got our New York State approval yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you. And I think Sandy has a question. Sandy, do you want to ask? Unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Hi, everyone. My name is Sandy. I have a daughter also as well with autism, and I'm a physician as well. I work in Florida. Uh, so I'm very passionate about actually coming up with some different technologies. I've tried different treatment modalities, but I think AI probably is changing the game for a lot of people. So my question to Pooja: so we actually have a lot of spellers that are actually, um, you know, changing how we look at autism. They are teaching us that they have a language, they have a communication tool, and they're telling us that they actually understand everything and they're able to also graduate from universities and such. But we're still actually rooted into the old ABA methods, which probably is not really very effective, and they haven't really stood the test of time. To me, I really look at it as glorified babysitting, where kids are actually off the screen, and that's basically how I look. How are you able to, with your technology, with your foundation, bridge that gap? Are you actually even looking into that? At schools, because I think my daughter's doing spell to communicate now with the teacher, and then and she goes to a foundation here called the ELS Foundation. I moved specifically from a different state to this area to get into that school. So even as big of a foundation, I think it's very hard to penetrate the system to change and bring in any other modalities that are actually bringing a change, just because the traditional methods are so rooted. So young people like you actually coming up with all these technologies, is there a way that you can actually bridge the gap and at least introduce this as a pilot to see how spell to communicate will work, and can we actually have more kids actually express themselves and such? So.
Yeah, definitely. Great question. I think that first and foremost, that's definitely something that we're looking into, and we really want to be able to bridge that gap, specifically because a lot of different children that we've worked with, they're just not progressing in the traditional methods of treatment or different types of therapeutic approaches. And I think that the biggest thing, like I mentioned before, there's so much data out there, right? And we really want to be able to harness and, first of all, identify which data points are correlated to these children's strengths, their weaknesses, and mainly focus on the strengths and be able to build upon these strengths, whether it's, they're really good at violin or they're very good at spelling or spell to communicate, similarly just being able to also, figure out what environments they're most comfortable in, and extrapolating off of that, being able to provide individualized therapeutic approaches based off of their, likeness of environment. And I think that that's one thing that we've definitely seen more in clinics than schools. Schools is quite controlled environment, and there's only really one place to go and one place to you're kind of undergoing all of these treatments or even academic curriculums with other people in the room. Some children don't like that, and some children want to be, very separated from other children. And I think that while there is a big gap within that space, there is a lot of different eyes on the problem, and especially like us with Mindly, we really want to be able to generate those insights with the data available, figuring out, okay, what are the strengths, where do they thrive the best in, and how can we use those data points to communicate with them, and be able to help them achieve their best abilities, especially within these different types of environments, whether it's at school, whether it's at home, being able to identify those high points and then being able to accurately identify the different ways and different approaches to kind of move forward, with the treatment. And that's, once again, one of the biggest things that we're trying to solve is bridging that gap and making sure that we can really, truly work on each individual child to the best of their abilities, and to really find what they're truly passionate about and how we can kind of communicate with them on a more effective level.
Great. Thank you. Actually, Sandy, I have an answer for you. Siri, my daughter, she does spell to communicate. And, the biggest challenge was of course, trying to figure it out, number one. And number two, trying to find coaches that can help her do that. And this whole spell to communicate community has been, again, divided. And so we are developing tools where you can actually digitize the whole process and be able to track each person's improvement or change, and then be able to publish that. There has been a lack of research in this space, although we all know it works. Parents know it works, and the professional communities have been very against it. And so that makes it harder for general acceptance and also recognition that this is a key tool for a lot of autistic children and adults to learn. And I give Series as an example. All her life she was never able to communicate, but now she's attending college. She's in her second year, and she's non-speaking. By the way, she wants to go to Berkeley, like everybody else in the Bay Area, right?
Yeah.
I think I really think if it's implemented very early on in school, I think they probably will have a voice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I think as parents, I think if they're frustrated, and as Rob said, that it impacts the entire family, entire village, and entire community. So it probably may actually lessen and ease the burden of what parents as a whole or the community as a whole actually is going through.
Definitely,
And
because
incorporate in school systems.
once you get the communication through, then it changes the trajectory of their development, of their needs and everything else. And so we are putting a lot of emphasis on that. And so we are building that. It's been 1 month since we released our first iteration. You can check it out at serica.ai. But with that note, we've come to the end of our time here. So, last question to the panelists. Kevin and everybody else, I'll start with Kevin. What is the one piece of advice, one sentence, to the innovators and the entrepreneurs that you want to give today?
One sentence would be stay laser focused on go to market and getting customers for your product. I'll just leave it at that.
Hey, all right, I'll go from that side. Rob.
Well, I hadn't thought about this one. Sorry. The one
Just
thing
do it.
is, yeah, I that is kind of the approach that I take in life is just do it. And you if you've got something and it's really working, it's gonna come to fruition. You'll know if it's not too, though. So don't know when to stop.
Pramila, one piece of
I would
advice.
echo the same thought. Try to get in touch with the nonprofits and communities like ours so we can direct you to a subgroup that you can test your product on so you can get early feedback from the potential users of the product, and that way you can get it better and take it to market quicker.
Okay, yeah, get in touch with the community. That's the message. Okay, Pooja, what is one piece of advice?
I would say reach for impact over hype. There are a lot of different, new technologies that are coming out here, but at the end of the day, you really want to solve a root problem and figure out the root cause of autism. And so I would say, yeah, impact over hype. Do the nitty gritty. It might take a little bit longer, but it'll definitely impact so many different people's lives. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. This has been a great class.